What's up guys, this is Tristan here, and today I'm going to be reviewing the 9-volume sci-fi manga, Number 6. Now basically the series takes place in this utopian city called Number 6, and the main character Shion, he is really smart, he's, praised by his peers, and overall he's just in a really high social class. Now one day this mysterious boy named Rat shows up at Shion's house and he's really injured, and Shion doesn't know who this kid is or anything like that, but since Shion knows a good amount about medical procedures and medicine overall, he decides to save this boy's life and cure up his injuries. Now it's later revealed that Rat was actually a criminal fugitive this whole time, and after this point things get a little bit hectic in this utopian city, and we start to find out that, it's probably not as great of a town as it's made out to be, and maybe there's some crazy government conspiracies and whatnot going on behind the scenes. And in the first volume, that's exactly what happens, and I'm not going to say too much more about the story to avoid spoilers, but nonetheless, things get pretty crazy. Alright, so next up, I'm going to be talking about the characters, because one of the big things that makes the series good are the characters, just the interactions with the different characters and how these interactions change from start to finish is really impressive, and more than anything, I think that the character progression, especially the progression with Shion's character, is really impressive. Now one of the reasons why Shion's character progression works so well is because this series is not only 9 volumes long, and that's kind of hard to do by itself, but it's also a gradual progression, and it's believable, and for a short series, that's not always the easiest thing to do, but Number 6 pulls that off pretty well, and, in certain moments, you can definitely see why Shion would act that way, even though you wouldn't really expect him to act that way in the beginning of the series. Also, the side characters, because the side characters are pretty good for the most part. I don't think all of them are great. I think some of them, such as Rikiga, aren't that interesting to me, and I was never really a big fan of his character. Some of the other side characters, such as Safu, Dogkeeper, and Shion's mom, really made for some interesting scenes in the manga. And overall, I really liked how some of the other characters were shown during all this crazy stuff, instead of just showing what Shion and Rat were experiencing. And it would have felt pretty isolated if it was just that, and since the series takes place in this big utopian city, I think that it's pretty necessary to focus on more characters than just the main two. With that being said though, I really wish this character Safu was in the series more, and even though she had a lot of great moments in the series, I think that there could have been a few more chapters where she is more prominent, because her character really added to some dynamic moments with Shion's character. And even though she had a good amount of moments early in the series and some good stuff later in the series, I think that just a little bit more of her character would have been pretty nice. So now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the artwork, because overall I think the artwork's pretty good. I think that at some times in the beginning of the series it feels a little bit awkward, but as the series goes on it becomes more, clean, and especially the backgrounds. The backgrounds usually always look really nice. The shading with the backgrounds looks really crisp. And overall, I really think it helps out add on to establishing the environment. Unfortunately though, I think that even though the artwork is pretty well drawn from start to finish, I think that one of the characters named Rikiga is just really awkwardly drawn from start to finish. And this is kind of disappointing because when he is first introduced, I kind of thought his character looked kind of weird, and I was expecting it to get better, and it sort of did, but not by much. So that was kind of disappointing, but I guess it is what it is. Now, when talking about Number 6, I should probably mention that this series has an underlying gay subplot to it, and I usually don't really care if a series has stuff like that in it, as long as it's not the main focus of the story, and as long as it doesn't get into any explicit territory. And in the case of Number 6, that was never a problem, it was never really something where it took focus over the main story. So if you are worried about getting into the series because it has a little subplot like that, then it's definitely a subplot. It's never really the main story, so yeah, I don't think that's really something to not read the series over. Alright, so the last thing I'm going to talk about is the ending. And the ending of the series, I thought it was pretty decent overall. But it kind of feels like an M. Night Shyamalan movie, in the sense that it has some plot twists, it has some curveballs, and a lot of these things, a lot of these plot twists and whatnot, may leave readers with a lot of split opinions. But as for me, I think that my opinions on the end of the series remain relatively unbreakable, in the sense that I think the Volume 8 plot twist had, some good moments. It was kind of risky. I thought that, not everyone's gonna like that, but I thought it was pretty good. But something that I didn't think was too good was the Volume 9 plot twist. And what I mean by that was I think the overall volume was pretty good, but the plot twist was a little bit of a stinker. It went a little too existential.
NANI?! You think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
And, you know, the build-up, there was a lot of build-up to the plot twist, and it was resolved so quickly that I was kind of just sitting there, like, looking at the page, and I was like, alright, is that it? Or is something else supposed to happen here? And that was it. So, again, I think that was a little bit of a stinker, but the Volume 8 plot twist kind of hit the nail on the head. It was a little risky, like I said, but pretty good stuff there. In conclusion, I think that number 6 is a pretty good contribution to the sci-fi genre, and I'm saying that both as a fan of the sci-fi genre and a fan of manga, so I'm a big fan of both those things, so for me, I think this was a nice combination, even though it's definitely not my favorite sci-fi story. Also, after I finished reading the series, I was reading some written reviews about it, and I saw that a lot of people were saying that this is their favorite manga series of all time. And as for me, I definitely don't share that opinion. As of right now, I don't think it would be on a top 10 list or anything like that, but I do think it could be on a top 20 list, and that's still saying a lot. Also, unlike usual, I'm not going to give the series an overall score, just because sometimes when I give a series a score out of 10, people focus more on the score I give it than the actual opinions I say about the series, so I'm not going to do that this time, but if you have any questions about the series, definitely let me know down below, whether you've read it or not, and I'll answer them. And with all that being said, I will see you guys in the next video.